Hello, you're watching Bangkok ChitChat, the YouTube channel from Thailand, all about Thailand. And before we get into the show, if you're watching for the first time and you haven't subscribed, then please do, that is great. And also liking, sharing and the notification button, if you could do that as well, that helps us a lot. And if you want to comment, don't forget there is a comment section underneath. Right, it's time for the Hua Hin Report, and let's go over to Hua Hin, and it's Richard. Hello, Richard.
Well, hello, Andy. Nice to see you both there. Looking pretty good. I couldn't afford the green screen, so we came out to the restaurant for the backdrop, just for the palm trees. It was the best we could do this morning.
It looks lovely.
Yeah, it is. But the place is pretty... I'm the only customer here because it is... In fact, I can show you. The place is just like completely empty. There it is. It's only me.
I think that's probably the same story everywhere in Hua Hin at the moment. I guess we better get into the the elephant in the room or whatever.
Well, what's the name of the place you're in?
I don't think he knows.
It's called Aroy Cafe. With
Oh, that's original. Aroy, yeah. Okay. Nice
at the bottom of
cafe. Yeah. Okay.
Tasty, tasty. So yeah, obviously now we're going through probably the worst cases of COVID that we didn't even experience this in the first wave. So things are pretty, well, what are they? What is it? How's Hua Hin at the moment?
Yeah, I think it is interesting that they have not locked down the whole country like they did last year. But of course, both Bangkok and Hua Hin, the Prachop are both red zones, of course. And I've just got the figures in within the last hour. There were 47 new infections reported here within the last 24 hours. And
Wow.
there are currently 860 people recovering in hospital from COVID-19 here in Hua Hin. And of course, that figure obviously changes a little bit every day. And they're also handing out vaccines. There have been a total of 5,900 vaccine shots given to the hospital staff and those that really need it. And they're using the Sinovac vaccine down here.
Right.
So there is an interesting website that gives us this information. It's a government website. It's all in Thai, of course. It's called the Prachop Provincial Health Office website. Sorry, it's a Facebook site, not a website, Facebook page. And the actual name of the page doesn't really work very well. It's SSJ PCKO. Can't remember that, but that's what it's called. Anyhow, they give us this information updated every single day, the number of people who have been infected and the number of people recovering, and basically general statistics. The other interesting thing that they have is quite a lot of detail on individual people that have been infected and their timeline. So they'll say that there's been like a delivery driver that's been infected at Tap Thai on the other side of town, and he called into here, and here, and he's now in hospital, for example. So, and they'll do that with several people. And so we can see the timeline of a lot of people. So it is interesting that a lot of these infections probably stem from a concert at the end of March. On the 30th of March, there was a major concert at the Mayor Concert Center. There's quite a large venue where they have live music and, club music and stuff like that. And Joey Boy was appearing on the 30th of March. So this obviously attracted a lot of locals. It attracted obviously a lot of people also from Tonglaw in Bangkok and around that area. And it's thought that a lot of those people may well have brought COVID down with them as part of their offering to Hua Hin. So there was the Mayor concert venue. And there's also another large pub fairly close by as well. So between them, there have been some large groups of people at the end of March, which we believe was the major cause of infection in this part of the world.
That seems, yeah, sorry, go on.
So how are they coping with the hospital beds? Because that's one of the worries. It was in the UK as well, obviously, but also here now. They're setting up these like gymnasiums or whatever they are, army locations
Field
with multiple
hospitals.
beds, yeah. And you look at it, and there's nothing between the beds, yeah. So and then there's some people I just read this morning that people from Tonglaw where they said, right, you've got to go to this army barracks place, and they refused. No, I want a private room. Well, I'm sorry, you're not getting a private room. So looking at prosecuting people not following the rules. But down in Hua Hin, how are they coping with that? Because you talked about 880 people infected. You don't have 880 beds plus all the others, yeah. So where are they putting these people, or are they doing self-isolation?
It's a total of 860 people or so recovering from COVID within Prachuap Khiri. Most of those will be in Hua Hin. Some will also be further south, down in Prachuap itself. But the main COVID recovery center has been Hua Hin Hospital, just north of Hua Hin. And that's the main testing area as well. So obviously that has filled up. There is another smaller hospital, government hospital, which is out on the sticks, actually quite close to where we live, which we gather has been used as a recovery center for COVID infected patients. And on top of that, there's a local technical university which has been converted into a field hospital in places. And I don't know how many beds are in there, but we do know that quite a lot of patients have been moved there. So they've been spread out into several areas, and I can only assume that there are going to be 2 or 3 other places that could be used, probably around the army center, just south.
Are people following the sort of mask and washing hands? Or
Yes.
people got a little bit lackadaisical about it, or what do you think?
People were lackadaisical about it. People were not wearing masks, but since the latest scare, people have become quite scared, and just about everybody's wearing a mask. I would just like to go back to that concert, the Joey Boy concert. My wife was at that concert with the girls in our family.
Oops.
And her best friend sitting next to her became infected with COVID, ended up in hospital. My wife got tested, came out negative. She came home. We put her in my old studio room. I pulled my studio out and the wife moved in there. We put a bed in there for her. So, yeah. So she was isolating.
At least she's used to it now, so she'll get upset.
Did you make a little slot in the door to pass the food through?
Well, yeah, exactly. And so she stayed there, and then she felt a bit sick after 10 days, even though she had been tested negative at Hua Hin Hospital. Well, she was very worried because at Hua Hin Hospital, there was a queue of about 120 people, all close together, all queuing up to be tested, and all felt that they had probably got COVID. So she thought, oh my God. So she paid to go to Bangkok Hospital. Now, Bangkok Hospital will offer a test for 6,300 baht, and that's what she paid for a test.
Oh.
And that came out negative. So she's been feeling a lot better about that since. And so that's really why I have been on my own. I haven't gone out
of the room. Yeah, you had to get her out of the room. I take it that room was soundproofed as well because it was your studio.
Well, you can't hear a spoon there. That's right. So it's all okay.
So would I be right in thinking, Richard, that Hua Hin are blaming Tonglaw for this outbreak?
Well, Bangkok, definitely, because there are a lot of party goers that go to venues in and around Bangkok that came down to Hua Hin, and they still come down to Hua Hin at the weekends. So, that's the situation so far. And of course, since then, there have been several cases at my children's school here, 2 or 3, I think at least 2 cases here, and 2 or 3 other schools as well. And there have been cases in some of the stores, supermarkets. And of course, since then, the government has sent in, and there have been private teams going in there to disinfect some of the stores. There were photos of the Macro store on the Thai Facebook pages a couple of days ago, being sprayed, and many restaurants are being sprayed. Now, the restaurants remain open while most entertainment centers are now closed. True Arena is closed, the water parks are closed, cinemas are closed. Most places of entertainment in brackets are closed.
What about golf clubs?
Golf clubs, I think you'll find they're closed at the moment. I'm not quite sure on the golf clubs because it is open. I agree with you, but I think they may be closed just at the moment. What I would say is that the places that are open are restaurants, and so each restaurant is allowed to take up to 2 people at one table, and that's it, or do takeaway food, and that's it.
Richard, interesting. Sorry to interrupt you here. We were talking off air about the first wave in Thailand, or in Bangkok for us, where the restrictions, I think it was in May, wouldn't it have been, where there was an alcohol ban in all places. You couldn't buy it in macro, anywhere, you couldn't buy alcohol. There was a curfew in place, and I do believe the restaurants were closed, just had to for takeout only.
That's right.
These things have not been put into into action this time, although the figures are much worse than back in the day when they did. What is your view on that?
Well, I think last time it was a national lockdown and a national ban on alcohol. This time it appears to be more localized, province by province.
Yeah, the governors are allowed to make their own decision.
I personally don't know that the sale of alcohol adds to or prevents COVID. I'm not sure about that unless you are able to go to a pub, and the pubs are closed. You're not allowed to go to a pub.
A lot of the pubs have a restaurant license anyway, and that's why they can open, yeah?
Well, the police are using their discretion. For example, Father Ted's down the road is a restaurant come bar. And, you know, that can be taken either way, and they do serve food. But I gather they were told to close. Yeah. So it's up to the discretion of the local police and the local area, I gather.
Right,
yeah. So, you know, COVID is probably going to be around for quite a while. I really don't know where it's going to go from here. Hopefully they will get this vaccine out.
I think that's the only way. I think that's the only way to get a vaccine out and tests done. The problem with the test is the same thing as you mentioned before, is there's a group of people going for tests because they feel they've got it, which means they spread it. Yeah. So they've also suggested, the Federation of Thai Industries have recommended that to use petrol stations. So it spreads it out. One of the petrol station groups have got 1,200 petrol stations. So what it becomes a more localized thing, yeah. And they use other more stations to train people up. The issue they've got is getting enough vaccines, yeah. But we're supposed to be manufacturing them. So in the newspapers this morning, they were saying this has to be ramped up. But I think there's a whole lot of they're saying people can buy. The companies can buy the vaccines, but then there's the next thing they say is, yeah, we can buy it, but we have to have a license for it. We haven't given a license to be able to buy it.
Because it's not approved.
Yeah, well, it is approved, but they can't get the license to be able to distribute and use, yeah? So there's a whole lot of red tape they're trying to get through, yeah, just now.
The government have said that they would try and approve these requests as soon as possible, but, you know, government is government, and government is bureaucracy, and by nature it's slow.
Richard, I mean, over the last, all through this COVID period, we've been talking to you on a monthly basis, and we've been very grateful for your input and a lot of views we get from these videos. Are you thinking now, we were so proud of Hua Hin, both Andrew and myself, of the way that you reacted to the first wave, second wave. We're fighting, we're coming back. We've done the food distribution for the poor, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and and then it all went quiet, and you were getting back into the groove. People were coming from Bangkok to stay in Hua Hin for the holidays. The hotels were doing da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Now it's come the worst ever. Is there any now feeling in yourself that, well, this is like the final straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing? Like, this is going to be harder to fight back from?
No, I think it is harder to fight back from because there are more numbers down here, more infections down here. But I don't think it's got to a point where it's overwhelming society. There are probably more people dying of cancer every day than there are COVID. And there are certainly more fatalities on the roads than there are of COVID. So it's all about perspective, and it's about, it's the government's ability and the health authorities' ability to pull the finger out and get that vaccine out. I agree with you on that. But I think locally, people are quite thankful that they had kind of a break over the last 3 or 4 months. At the radio station, we actually took on more advertising. We were more than full for nearly 2 months. And since the end of March, that's dropped right down, of course. But February, March, we were more than full of advertising, with local business just cranking it up and trying to get business back into gear again. And I think there is a determination here to continue and get back going. And restaurants are still open, thankfully. This little coffee shop is still open, even though it's only got myself and a couple of others here now. But it will turn over people every day, and that's all locals really want. They want to see a continuation of local business.
Richard, what was your Songkran like? Because you mentioned road fatalities, and I always link the two together. So what was it like? What was it like? Yeah.
Yeah, well, Thailand saw 277 people killed on the roads nationally. We don't have a breakdown of figures locally. And there were a lot of road accidents. It says there 2,300 road accidents during the Songkran holiday, but who knows? Most of those were motorcycles, of course. But I tell you, the thing that I did notice, I did go out a couple of times for a drive, went down to the beach and get away. And what I noticed is there was nobody throwing any water for the first time ever. Yeah. There was not one bucket of water tossed at my car. Amazing.
And you were at the sea. And you were at the sea.
So it's still dirty.
So,
do you have many visitors from around the country, or was it dead? Yeah, at Songkran.
I'm so sorry again.
Well, the Songkran period, did you have many tourists down there, or was it dead?
We had a few people from Bangkok. Yes, the hotels were very busy for a weekend or so. But again, it was a changing situation, because during that holiday period, the government, you could sense they wanted to impose more restrictions, but they didn't do it while the Songkran holiday was on.
Like they did last year. They cancelled it.
Well, they cancelled it. This year they didn't.
That's another difference from this time last year. Songkran went ahead.
Moving situation during the Songkran period this year. And it was only the day before the end of Songkran that the local governor brought out his new list of regulations of what should be open and what should be closed, which then was imposed the day after Songkran. So it was an interesting time to see how the government was dealing with this, and the fact that they wanted people to enjoy Songkran, number one. They wanted business to obviously get the benefit of some visitors, which they did, number two. And, there were even some flights, backwards and forwards, up and down across the country. There was local flight.
Yeah.
We had people from Chiang Mai and up from Phuket, and people visiting Hua Hin.
So the sacrifice paid for these liberal ideas would be, our numbers are going to go up. So you are now sowing what you've reaped, or reaped what you've sowed. So you're bound to get higher figures because people now are allowed to travel over.
But they actually said that before Songkran. They said, listen, we know this is going to happen, but let's deal with it after Songkran. And it is a balance between the economy. But even for restaurants, you think about it. The restaurants bought in a whole lot of food. Yeah, it was a gamble because they didn't know whether people were going to come. And then they maybe said, all right, so they're going to bring this restriction in, and they're left with that food. Or pubs buy beer and barrels, and they can't sell it. Why? Because they're suddenly closed just after Songkran. Yeah. So it was a real balancing act for the companies. What about events? Is there any happy news? Give us some happy news. Any events or anything? Any displays or?
There are a lot of Thai athletes that are due to head off to the Tokyo Olympics, apparently.
Yeah,
assuming
that's
that,
right. Yeah.
There's been a run around the country by different people. I'm not quite sure who, but there's been a group of people running around the country. And yesterday they ran from Kui, which is 40 kilometers south of here, up through Hua Hin, up to Chatham yesterday, as part of a national run to celebrate and say, you know, good luck to the Thai athletes who are heading off up to the Olympics. So that run came through Hua Hin yesterday. I didn't see them, I was at home, but there we are. Sadly, there was a very tragic news story last week down in Prambury. I got a call from somebody to say there was a news situation down there, and a young boy of 8 went swimming with his family. There was a Thai family, and they owned a small property, a little hotel on the side on the beach road at Prambury, and they went on the beach to play in the sea, and the 8-year-old boy went out to swim, and he got into difficulties and couldn't get back, and was in serious trouble. So the boy's grandfather went in to swim and try and rescue the boy. Now, sadly, both drowned last week. And there were tragic pictures. I got some video and pictures of the grieving mother with her son lying on the beach beside her, and of course the father. And divers were called in because they couldn't find the body of the grandfather, but they did eventually find his body. And that was a very, very sad situation last week, a sad family. And of course, the currents and the winds, the waves were quite strong off the Prambury coast just last week, and they're still quite strong even today.
It's interesting you brought that up, because I read the other day a statistic about deaths. This is really morbid, but we'll move on after this.
A happy story.
But this caught me by surprise. More Thais die from drowning than they do car accidents or motorcycle accidents. It's now getting to a 50-50 stage. So there's lots of now organizations teaching Thais to swim. But we know what it's like in these seas. And I've been caught out in Phuket when I nearly drowned. I went out, oh, this is lovely, I'm free, I'm going. And I couldn't get back. Luckily, someone had a water scooter, one of my friends came to get, because I'd run out of energy trying to fight the current to get back.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was discussing this with my wife the other night. Part of it is that when we went to school in the UK, you were always taken to swimming baths. That was part of the curriculum. Yeah?
Swimming baths.
Swimming bath, or whatever you want to call it.
No, that's what they were called. No, swimming baths. The local Lido.
And you had certain things like how to survive if something happened. Like you took your shirt, you tied it in knots and things like that, and you pulled air into it. All this sort of stuff at school. But you were taught to swim. Everyone was taught to swim. Yeah. And that lacks within the curriculum here. And it's weird, because you probably get more swimming pools in Thailand than anywhere in the world.
Well, I'm surprised about Scottish people having a problem, because I would have thought you'd just blow up your bagpipes and float in.
You know, it's like a Swiss Army knife to a Scotsman. We carry our bagpipes everywhere.
They're like water wings. But hang on, we are obviously very sad about that event, Richard. We're just trying to lighten it up in the sense of the swimming side of things. It's you know, Thais need to be taught how to swim basically at an early age.
Yeah, and then it's left to parents to, like my nephews, they've been taken regularly to learn to swim, which is good. But also it's an exercise thing. But anyway, all right. So is there any events? Give us a happy thing, for God's sake.
Yes, there is. But just to finish off your conversation, I would like to see CPR taught to the population. I think it's such a valuable lesson to be learned, particularly as we're down here on the coast. Okay, I'm going to finish up on a very bright note.
Yay!
On the 7th of April, I went to a press conference at the airport here in Hua Hin, and that was chaired by a guy called John LaRoche, who is the founder and CEO of the Phoenix International Corporation, which is based in Hong Kong. And Phoenix International have been awarded the license to redevelop and promote and organize the reopening of international flights directly into Hua Hin.
Whoa.
And is for the first international flights to start before the end of the year. So we can expect direct flights from Hong Kong to Hua Hin, Singapore, Malaysia, and he was saying anywhere within a 6 to 7 hour radius of Hua Hin, they will eventually have flights coming into this airport.
Wow.
So that was terrific news.
Yeah, 7 hours, 7 hours. I'm trying to work out 7 hour flights from here.
I think with it, because a flight,
Middle East.
a flight 6, 7 hours will be probably a smaller plane than something.
Yeah, but I'm
12,
thinking of
yeah.
geographical,
Well,
where,
yeah.
you know,
Oh,
Middle
right,
East,
okay.
7 hours, Middle East.
Yeah, Middle East, yeah. It is, yeah. It's half,
Yes.
you go by Emirates, you stop in Dubai, yeah.
I think they're thinking really that slightly smaller aircraft. So Fly Dubai may be able to come in, for example. Also direct flights to India, you know, and Singapore and the Philippines and Vietnam and all these, you know, and up to China. Fantastic opportunity. And John was saying that the existing facilities can be used immediately to start the ball rolling, and then they will gradually develop the facilities by extending the runway slightly, probably adding another terminal building within a year or two.
That's positive
That's
news.
great.
That's
Well,
really good.
And another thing on transport, I saw that the railway is 83% complete between the Kampatom and Hua Hin. I read that
Possibly,
somewhere.
I don't know much about that. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of...
And also the new station. This new station in Hua Hin, is that finished yet or nearly finished or?
No, it isn't really. There's lots of concrete, but nothing that looks remotely like a station.
Okay, all right. Okay, Richard, first of all, thank you so much for what you've done, unless you've got any other questions.
No.
I was going to say something really complimentary, but it's gone out of my head. Richard, we do value, you know, your reports, mate, and we know you go out of your way to do it for us. So on behalf of our viewers, what you got there? Sanitizer?
Yeah, well, somebody approached me and said they want to advertise this on the radio. So I thought, I'll try it. And he said, you can spray it in your face. So let's do that. There you go. Now,
We got it.
There was no alcohol in that.
Glasses, can't see through your glasses.
No alcohol in it. Okay.
No alcohol, and there's nothing toxic. And it reckons that you can just, it's a bacteria thing. It kills bacteria, and there's some electrolysis that goes on. He was saying.
Yeah, that is a good movie. All right, then. Richard, as I say, though, I was going to pay you, since you did the advert, I'll surf 102.5. Yeah. Yeah. That football thing that you do on a Friday, isn't it? Can you say a bit more about that? I watched the last one you sent me. It's great. It's brilliant. And with what's going on with this Super League in Europe or whatever, I bet they had something to say about that.
Are you talking about the podcast? Or,
the podcast.
Well, number one, I produce a weekly podcast with Gary Stevens, who's a professional footballer.
Yeah.
Gary and Steve Johnston talk together. I just press the record button and then they sort of get on with it. And we do that every week and we launch that. So that's up on Spotify. It's called Sunshine Soccer. Sunshine Soccer. It's on Spotify and most other platforms. And the other thing I do is usually a live broadcast on Surf from the Marriott Hotel. We do that Friday morning. But of course, this week, we're not allowed to go into the hotel because of COVID. So it's from our regular studio. But we're on 24 hours a day on the radio. So if you'd like to check it out, it's a good station. Good fun.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's always your friend on the radio, Richard on the radio.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Hey,
Andrew.
thank you. Thank you for giving us this report,
Yeah.
for want of
Okay,
a better
well,
word.
we'll speak to you in the next couple of weeks.
Stay safe, buddy. Stay safe.
See you later. Cheers.
Okay, so there you go. That's Richard. He's always there. He's always there. And he gives us good reports. And Hua Hin, I felt so invigorated with his earlier reports of how Hua Hin was fighting. You know, he was full of, and remember he did all those graffiti things showing the graffiti, and it showed a vibrant city. Now with an airport.
Oh, that's going to make a huge difference. Huge difference. And I think that vibrance will certainly come back because just now they can't do anything because of the restrictions, full stop. Yeah?
I mean, you're talking to a finance guy later on. You want to mention this to him, because I'm not on it because I know nothing about finance, but about can you buy into this airport? Can you get shares in it? Can you open up
I'm sure
outlets?
this Phoenix company, if it's listed, you could. But this is just one. This will just be one project that they're doing. Yeah, because they obviously specialise in airports, promotions, etc. So yeah, I'd have to look. We'd have to look into that. But yeah, okay.
Which camera do I say goodbye on?
Middle one, Canon.
The middle one.
Yeah.
Aye. So, well, you can say goodbye. Come on.
Okay, listen.
Time you earned your money.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience in watching the show. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And we'll see you soon.
Another report coming up from Pattaya in a couple of weeks.
Yes, that's right.
All right.
Keep tuned in.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.